Hello, everybody. Good evening. Hope we are all doing well today. And it's that time again. It's that time of the week. It's time for the Seahawks Brendan Nelson and the Hawks Nest Brandon show. So, as we do every 2 weeks on this channel, I'm going to welcome Brandon to the channel. How are you doing?
I am doing amazing, brother. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well, man. I'm doing well. Had my power line buried yesterday. So that's nice. The power's back on, like everything here isn't dead. So I'm
Oh,
happy
okay.
about that.
So I guess no more windstorms then to take you out when that happens, right? That means you're now safe from
Hopefully, hopefully.
that.
That's what I can hope for.
The one upshot.
So, yeah. And we've got some Seahawks stuff to talk about as we always do this week.
And much like this whole off season, Brendan, nothing but just happy news, right? Good,
hmm
uplifting news, right? What
Right.
is it? Lay it on me today. What is it today, Brendan? What's the magical stroke?
Well, since last we spoke,
Mm,
the team has been pretty idle. It's not really been about what we're doing. It's been about what has been happening to us. Things are happening to us, but we're not really going out and doing that much. About the best I
mm,
got for you is
uh-huh.
that we got word on Justin Coleman's contract. It is a veteran minimum deal, so we're
Okay.
starting off on the right foot. You were right
Okay.
about that. I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be a little bit more, but hey, veteran minimum for Justin Coleman.
That's good. Nothing but beauty there, right? This is nothing but an upshot move. When there's no downside, no extra money committed, you cut him anytime, and you know you've got the baseline of the past. Doesn't matter if he's had a recent couple of years where it's been rough roads. Maybe you tap back into that and you got an upside, all that guy production wise for no value, for no cost. That's the way smart organizations run.
Yeah, we are now paying Justin Coleman and Artie Burns combined less than we gave Akella Witherspoon last year.
Exactly. And only, by the way, those two combined are only costing, I think, 1 million more than I think Ugo
hmm
could potentially cost this upcoming season. One reason why Ugo is probably then cut because you've got two guys that are probably better than him.
hmm
Outside of him having some sort of inside track to that free safety position as a backup, he may be. I think he's going to end up on the cutting block because of that.
Very possible, very possible, and I would support that. He's a guy who qualified for the PPE bonus simply because everyone else got hurt, not because of
Yeah,
his play.
yeah,
So that extra, what is it, 2 million or something?
yeah. It's a crazy bump for like. You're right. It doesn't take some amazing thing of production to get your bump off of being. So he's what, Brendan, a 6th round pick, right?
No, he
It,
was
it
a
was
fourth.
okay. So was he a fourth? They went that high on him? My
I think
goodness.
so.
Well, even still, that's a cheap contract. You usually like to get those guys thinking, okay, we're getting them cheap, and then he goes out and just simply playing. It's based on playing time, Brendan. Like literally, just him getting on the field escalates. Then in his contract now, we saw this with Dickinson last year. It is tough, Brendan, because I think this does have to it's worth noting because this has to now educate us now in the future and looking at 4th, 5th round picks, going, okay, wait, you go, oh, I want to hit on him, and then I got him for a cheap 3 years. Maybe it's not as cheap as you quite think on some of these guys with the way that it can escalate.
Right. And DK also qualified for that PPE, but in his case, it's totally fine because he
Yeah.
absolutely deserves it. But Ugo, no, no,
And
no,
it's
no,
not
no, no.
but it's not a big different variance between them, right? Like he's
Right.
got DK gets maybe like 1 million more, and it's like You're right, DK's earned it, but then okay, he's only just gotten this much more than Ugo. What I'm saying is those guys should stay low. Those later round picks, just because you're on the field merely, should not. Now I get to make a couple million more a season. I don't know if I like the way that works, Brendan, especially when you're sometimes trying to find the diamonds in the rough and take advantage of a little bit of that rookie time to build the roster up in the way you're trying to build it. Is what it
Mm.
is.
Okay, so yesterday we got word that Ethan Posick is leaving us, went to Cleveland for basically vet min, basically what we gave Kyle Fuller. Now, I'm not here to be upset about that because I think Ethan Posick wants to start. And once he got word that we signed Austin Blythe, it became clear that was very unlikely. He goes to Cleveland where he can compete with, I think, Nick Harris, the former Husky,
Mhm.
who has all the size and strength of a Joey Hunt. So I do think that Posick will have the inside track on starting in Cleveland, and I think that's why he went there. But it still hurts to know that a quality backup like Posick gets paid the same as Kyle Fuller.
Very much so too, because Brendan, you also then wonder at this point, okay, let's see, we bring back Posick on a 1 year, 2 million deal, or we're going to get Blythe on a 1 year, $4 million deal. Is that right?
Mhm.
So, okay, Blythe's coming in now then, and he's going to give us better than Posick, right? Right, Brendan?
I think he
Right?
will.
I'm hopeful he will, but if it comes down to the bottom line of that, there's a reason that he couldn't kind of edge out Creed last year, and there's a reason that the Rams let him go after starting there for 4 straight years. That maybe perhaps things are slightly starting to erode there, and you're paying for something that was what it was in 2018 versus what it maybe is now in 2022. We'll see. He does fit the scheme better than Posick from a movement-based ability, and he has familiarity with the scheme. He's going to understand all of the reach block stuff, all of the places he needs to be in the timing and how he needs to be there, and he can show other linemen around him. So there is some value in that as well. But you're right. It does kind of hurt with the veteran minimum deal versus, to me, you look at what you did on the other side, going $4 million, which isn't a big deal. But again, these short-term deals with the big money on the front end, you're not able to move any of the money around. It's like Blythe's deal this year, Brendan, his 1 year, $4 million deal, to put this in perspective, he's costing this year of us merely $2.5 million less than Lindsley costed the Chargers last year on the first year of his cap hit.
Mhm.
That's why I'm kind of, I know I'm chewing on this one a little bit, but that's why this one kind of gets stuck in my craw a little bit. It's smartly constructing roster versus not smartly constructing. Do you want an Austin Blythe on the 1 year, $4 million that gets you that flexibility? Or do you go up to the $2.5 million more, give a couple of years out in the deal and get yourself a Corey Lindsley?
Well, my question would be the Corey Lindsley thing. That's a good comparison, but now because it's only a 1 year deal, you have the flexibility to maybe go get a Tyler Linderbaum.
Right.
But are you going to do that? Are
Bingo.
you, or even Dylan Parham? I like Dylan Parham. I think he's a pretty good day two center pick. We'll probably talk about him a little bit later today. But the point is, you now have some flexibility to get a really good blue chip young center. But now, are you going to do that? That's my thing.
It's always been the counter with me is I'm fine with them taking a direction and a plan. Just show me you have a plan, and not that we're going to end up in the fourth round with our center of the future, Cole Strange. Versus, let's backtrack this all the way back down the line where we started on this first. You could have had a Creed Humphrey. You could have signed a Corey Lindsley. It doesn't have to be one or the other for me. It's just invest in a quality guy. And instead you're doing the same old thing, which is investing in the lack of quality, in the stuff where you're hoping to find the diamond, the proverbial diamond in the rough. That's just a lot more rough than they are diamond.
All right. So that's about all we can say about the Posick thing. It's whatever, but today is not whatever.
Yeah.
We have now heard that Bobby Wagner headed to the Los Angeles Rams. And brace for impact on this one, because I didn't see this coming at all. 5 years, $50 million, upshot to $65 million. So he got paid in a pretty significant way. I'm going to keep an eye on that contract. I have a feeling that contract has an easy or relatively easy out after 2 or 3 years. Yes. However, that doesn't really matter to us right now. What matters is that we're going to have to see Bobby Wagner playing for the Rams. So, I mean, there's no way around it. That is definitely unfortunate. I don't like that. I stand by everything I said about Bobby. I think his play has diminished significantly. I think we were right to let him go. However, I will say this. In LA, where they have a great pass rush with Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd, he's going to be a little more protected. So you are probably going to see Bobby be a little more effective in LA than he was here, just because that pass rush is going to protect him in coverage, and it's going to allow him to more focus on the area where he can still play well, which is stopping the run. Mm-hmm. But what do you got for me, man? How are you feeling today?
Agreed on your last thoughts on that. So let me piggyback off of that. You put elite talent around Bobby. He's shown you in the past he can do pretty well with that. Elite talent's not been surrounding him, in my opinion, across the board here recently. So he very well could end up playing pretty good for them. I also agree with you that the contract is certainly not what it really is in paper. He's his own agent, so there's a big part of him getting his own win here. These guys that want to be their own agent, they're very fast to get to the media and say, hey, look what this great contract I negotiated for myself. It's all these numbers. And, then you dive into the numbers and it's not really that. It's still going to factor out to being a pretty good chunk of change, I would imagine. Not maybe as much guarantee money. You notice, Brendan, you didn't hear about the guaranteed with it. You heard the 65, but you didn't hear, wait, what's our guarantees? What's he making there? And that's, I think, also another key. But it's going to hurt. It's going to suck. I'm with you. All of our assessments on Bobby Wagner were still correct. I think as well, Brendan, with you and me, our assessments are driven a little bit on this by Jordan Brooks. And I will go back to this a little bit again on, man, this, and we got to talk about this because this is going to delve right into the draft and what we're coming up into here. And this is strategy. And this is your mindfulness of your approach and what you're doing. You draft Jordan Brooks 2 years ago on draft night. I said on draft night, I don't like this pick for a couple of reasons. And not just, it's not the player himself, but the other factors at play here. He's playing out of position his first 2 years. And this is going to help usher the exit of Bobby Wagner. And people on the chat that night flamed me left and right, calling me crazy for saying so. But I do have to wonder, Brendan, you come into this season, and if Jordan Brooks isn't here, and you come into now this year, and you would use that first round pick, I don't know, maybe on an offensive line, but he's not here and Bobby's here. Here's my question to you. Does the front office need to renegotiate with Bobby at that point rather than just out and out saying, Bobby, you're gone, bye, no attempt at renegotiate? And you know what? We won't even call you when we're going to let you go. We're going to let you figure that one out by the media or however you do. Instagram.
Maybe we would have. I don't know if we should have. I stand by what I said about Bobby's ability on the field. I think that he is mostly at this point just a run stopper. He is effective in that area, but he is basically a jag when it comes to passing plays, and that's more than half of the game on defense. It's actually way more than half. At the end of the day, the most important thing in the NFL is being able to get stops on third down or on offense, continuing to drive on third down. And when it comes to third downs, Bobby doesn't really offer much value. So maybe we would have extended him. I don't know if I would have wanted to. So
I wouldn't have extended him. I would have just done, like, what I'm thinking is they come back and they, okay, we're going to do this 1 year, $10 million deal. Let's slice it out, or 1 year, $8 million deal. And then you get a nice chance at still doing one more contract after this year, if that's what you want to do. But, and I'm not even sold on, like, I had to bring him back, Brendan. It's just that this was as driven as much by Jordan Brooks's presence and him there as much as just being driven by the ability of Bobby Wagner. That's the part that I don't like. I'd rather this being driven fully by Bobby Wagner's ability and whether or not he has anything in the tank, and nothing to do with you trying to draft the heir apparent. You see Green Bay doing the same kind of thing with the Jordan Love at a quarterback level in their draft a couple years ago. It's like, it just, to me, again, it illustrates the stupidity a little bit at times of the way that they go about their strategy for drafting and then team building. Sometimes it just leaves me scratching my head versus going an alternative path.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But again, I just stand by what I said about Bobby. I think he is falling quickly. There are some people who insist that, he had his best season because he had more tackles than he's ever had. But I think that's clearly not true. And he can get worse, massively worse.
Yeah.
And it could come very quickly. He's getting run into by big 300-pound guys every single play. I don't mind that part of it so much. I think the most highest impact thing from this is another reminder that the salary cap is easily manipulated. What business do the Rams have giving any kind of money to pretty much anybody, but especially a guy like a Bobby Wagner, who's now, I know he's not going to see a lot of that money, but he's going to see some of it. To me, that was more interesting than the Bobby Wagner part of it.
What is this? Their third big money contract they've handed out this offseason, walking into the offseason projected to be $15 million. Fourth big money deal, right? They signed Stafford, they get Allen Robinson, they get I think they got a safety in there that they signed some money to, and now they've given Bobby a contract. I think they've given out, at least just this offseason alone, to put this to your point on this, Brendan, they've given out, I think, 4 contracts that have been bigger than any contract we've given out. And we came into this offseason with $50 million in cap space, and we're down to about 16 right now.
Yeah.
Walk me through that one.
Yeah. Well, the Stafford thing actually freed up money, I think, in fairness. The Stafford thing was actually more to free up money than anything else. I get that. But it really should cast a very, very bright light on how untenable our way of doing things really is. And I don't know what it's going to take for Pete and John to learn their lesson here, but clearly they haven't yet. Now, let me step back and say, this is not the offseason to be handing out big contracts, not when Drew Lock is your quarterback. That's fine. I'm talking about previous years when you maybe were 2 players away from making that Super Bowl run and you didn't get those 2 players. That's the frustration point. This offseason, fine, whatever. Do short-term deals, keep your options open for the future. That's fine. But I'm talking about the previous years when you really could have gone for it and you just didn't.
That's where my issue comes into play at this stuff, is that this has been a long time running process of them trying to go to this wave 3 tier realm of the free agent period and find success, and they're not finding any success in it. And they continue to go back to that well, and the waters remain poisoned. And I understand that it's not the time to maybe spend the money, but at the same point in time, you have $50 million, you got to spend something or roll it over, or tell us that you're rebuilding and roll over. That's the other part of this though, Brendan, is they're telling us that they're trying to compete this year. So you were telling us also that you were trying to go for it this offseason, if based on what you guys were saying to the press, and that doesn't seem to be the case, but is kind of the case, but isn't the case. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it wasn't just that they said that they're trying to compete this year. It was the way Pete put it. He almost sounded like he was saying, "You're stupid if you want to rebuild. Rebuilding is stupid."
Right.
That's basically how he put it. So I don't know. I would just feel so much better if he didn't say that, because I'm ready for the 4-win season. I really am.
Yeah, me too.
Like it happens sometimes, and a lot of the time it pays off. If you're smart with the way you build your team after that 4-win season, it's worth it.
Right. Right. And the thing with it that I worry about is that it's okay if you're lying to me and you're just doing it in the background. But if you're lying to me and then sort of partially going in too at the same point in time to get to more to the 7-11 season or whatever, whatever these new with the extra game. I haven't still got that like automatic yet, Brendan. But you know what I'm saying? You're getting to more of the mediocre state of a team, which means now you're outside the realm to draft that quarterback. One thing that I've been worried about looking at recently with this, Brendan, is you've got Texans, Detroit, Atlanta, if not more teams than that will be worse than you next year, especially if you're in this mid-state kind of, let's get Quinn in here, let's get a Wosu in here, we'll play special teams, we'll grind out a couple of games, where the ball will bounce our way a few times. And now those top 3-4 quarterbacks are off the board by the time you're selecting. And now you're in no man's land.
Right. All right. So that's really all I have for the Bobby thing. I mean, it's going to be unfortunate to watch him play in a Rams uniform. I don't like that. But on the whole, like we cut him. We needed to cut him. I supported cutting him. And he's going to go back to where he grew up. That makes sense. He grew up in LA, right?
He did. And to your point on that too, remember as far as where he's at in his career and how much he's played in this contract, Luke Kuechly, he retired, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? And he was retired. Like he came in the same draft that Bobby Wagner came in. And, how many more games has Bobby played, not just in the additional years, but in the playoff games? And you do wonder how much tread's going to be left on that tire long term, especially in not just the 2 years from now, but even into this next year, as we saw the knee tore up at the last game. It's like, it is getting up there right now. There's a lot of games to play.
Yeah, I think he's about to. I don't think he has much left at all. I'm not too worried about that. Now, will he probably save his best games against us? Sure, but I don't even. But who cares about that? We're not going to win anything this year. It's not like we're going to the NFC title game and Bobby's going to beat us to go to the Super Bowl. That's not happening. So I don't even care about it from that perspective.
No.
Barry Soy Toro, thank you for the $5. Will Brendan ever bring back the giant whiteboard to break down contracts and cap hits? I miss those days. Yeah, I used to do my videos on a whiteboard, like with markers, but it was a lot of work. So now I just do it on spreadsheets. It's much easier.
Whiteboard Brendan's got a little bit of a phonetic roll to it, though,
Yeah, it was fun, but I came out of the 1960s and discovered that there are these things now called computers.
Yeah, that's true. It does make it a lot easier on these computers to do this stuff. So I can't wait till we can do the telestrators. That's what I'm waiting for, Brendan. I want I want to get the telestrator action going here, but you can do it technically, but it's a lot of like trying to get the Mac to the PC, back to the Mac. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's time for the meat of this video. Meat of this stream. We are going to start taking a look at the draft. We have done a little bit of talk about this upcoming draft. It's a very important draft for this team. We have a top 10 pick. We have 2 second-round picks that are in the top 10 of the second round. We have a lot of work to do, and luckily we actually have some tools to work with. So today is going to be all about the offense, and next week we will segue to the defense. We're going to get as far as we can today into the offensive players. And we've got a lot of needs on offense. We're going to touch on every position except for tight end and fullback, hopefully. We're not going to do tight end because there's no way we can invest in another tight end right now. It's impossible. And fullback, I don't think I need to explain that one. But every other position is worthy of consideration. So we're going to start with quarterback, which I know is going to be the big draw for a lot of people because quarterbacks, I mean, they're quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Last week, we already talked a little bit about Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett, so we're going to kind of pass over that. By the way, there's actually a lot of buzz about Kenny Pickett going number 6 to Carolina now. I don't know if you've heard.
Please
Apparently,
do it,
there's a
Carolina.
Kenny Pickett, Matt Rule connection of some sort.
Please do that. Please do
Yeah.
that, Carolina. Please make that your pick. Just go for it. Yeah, he'll be great. He'll be great.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, I think the dream is that you've got Jacksonville at number 1. Let them take Trayvon Walker because I don't really want him. And there's rumors, by the way, they're going to do that. Don't know where it came from. And then you have Malik Willis go to Detroit, Kenny Pickett go to Carolina, and Kyle Hamilton go to Houston. That means we're going to have a lot of really nice options at number 9.
Would you trade up for Aiden?
Me? No, I don't think I would. I like the other edges in this draft a little too much.
Okay.
I
like him a lot. Because I hadn't thought of that about you're right about the Walker thing getting so much heat and the way this could play. Where okay, now suddenly Aiden goes from a month ago lock stock number 1 to now he's sliding to 3 or 4, and you're starting to go,
it's too much to give up. It's still like over 1,000 points of value.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, damn it, Jimmy Johnson.
Apparently, most teams actually use the Harvard chart now, which is slightly different. Right. I need to look into that a little bit more.
That's the one with the hyphen name, like it's all right. The Gonduli Budulai chart or something. He's got some fancy
that's why nobody uses it. The name is not catchy at all. Okay, so quarterbacks. Let's start with your boy, your favorite, Matt Corral. Let's start with your favorite. Okay. So let me go through the facts here real quick. Ole Miss, a little bit small, 6'1", 205 pounds. Big hands, though, 9.7 inches. We care about that now because of the Kenny Pickett stuff.
Ladies love Corral.
Yeah. We're trying to keep it G-rated around here. We're going to get in trouble again, though. Let's leave it at that. Most recent 40 time 4.8, which is okay. Not the best, but not the worst. The last 2 seasons, he's thrown for almost 7,000 yards, completed about 69% of his passes, 9.5 yards per. Not bad. He fixed his turnover problem from 2020 to 2021, turned it over or threw 14 interceptions in 2020, 5 in 2021. Also ran for over 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns over that 2-year span. A couple of big boards have him as a late first rounder, like CBS and Tankathon. Mm-hmm. Most of them have him as a second round pick, however. So let me say one thing about Matt Corral real quick. When I did my initial scouting video, one of the issues I had with him was his arm strength. I had a lot of people in the comments say, what are you talking about? He's got a great arm. He's got a great arm strength. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what we mean by arm strength in regards to Matt Corral.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's an important thing. And Brendan, it's one of those things where both sides can kind of be right on this, which is why that there's such a differing opinion. You look at it, I look at it, we see something, they look at it, they see something else, and they are just the arm strength factor with Corral. Inside of 15 yards or so, you give him 16, 17 yards, okay? He can spin it. The ball comes out with a real tight spiral. He's got a quick release, and he's got velocity in that span. But just because he has velocity in that span and it's pumping out there does not mean it's doing the same thing 20, 25, 30, 45 yards down the football field. And so what you see when you see him trying to push the ball further down the football field at that point is more of a struggle in getting it up the field with any kind of zip. And that's where I draw the thing on. Yes, inside the 15 yards, there's the velocity, but down the field, it's not there. I try to make the comparison of this, Brendan, to Matt Hasselbeck. He was this way. He drops back inside of 15 yards. He could probably throw it just about as hard as anybody in the NFL outside of a guy like a Favre or whatnot. But you start pushing him into 20, 25, 30 yards, and it starts to exponentially fall backwards as far as that power goes. Take a guy like Justin Herbert. The ball explodes out of his hand, and it's still exploding 15 yards down the field. That's something you've got to build into your assessment on quarterbacks, because if they struggle to get it down that football field past that 15-yard point, this is where I come to on my evaluations. Processing's number 2, but number 1 is arm strength for me. And if you don't have it, and that's a big part of there and saying not have it, you can't make all the NFL throws. And NFL defenses will now take away what you can't do and now break your strengths, force your strengths to be taken away from you and say, what are you going to do now?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I put it. Inside that 15 yards, and don't get me wrong, in this offense, it's going to be a lot of stuff under 15 yards, but you still got to be able to take the top off.
You do.
So I'm not in love with Matt Corral because of that. When I scouted him, my quick notes were basically the issues with him are the arm strength. He doesn't have much of a deep ball. He's got some injury concerns. I think he missed some time at Ole Miss to injury.
Hmm.
He mostly ran RPO, which I don't know if we do that around here. It doesn't seem like it. He did have a lot of turnovers in 2020, so a little bit of a history of turnovers. And I just feel like he's going to be one of these guys that is very dependent on the system making easy throws for him. He needs those manufactured throws. But I do think he has a good football IQ. He's got a great release. His mechanics are nice. Going to be good over the middle of the field. He's a good runner, but he doesn't look to run. He looks to pass. So there were some things that I liked. But overall, Matt Corral, if he fell down to like that third round, you could talk me into it. But it looks like he's going to be about an early second rounder. I'm not so sure I'm feeling it.
Bingo. If we're talking about, this is about value a little bit as much as it is about the guy not, that's where we go. Well, he's got the velocity inside the 15 yards. He's got the quick release. He's got the accuracy in that point. As you said, he can hit the middle of the field despite being only really a 6'1", 6'2" type cat. So there are some pluses to his game, which would make him a prospect, but not a first round prospect, not a second round prospect. And that's where he's going right now. Can you tell me on the stats you provided, what's the fumbles for his years on that?
I could not find fumbles for some reason. The College Football Reference website. Let me see if I can pull them up on ESPN here real quick. But they actually didn't keep track of his fumble stats on the website I was using. Let me see if ESPN is doing it. Fumbles. No, they don't keep track of fumble stats for college football. What is up with that? Why would
I,
they do
I
that?
I don't know. And the only reason I bring this up is I've watched about 5 games of Coral, and I swear to God, it seems like every other quarter he'll go scramble or there'll be a guy in his face. And this was that comparison I made to you a couple weeks ago of the every time a guy comes up and reasonably hits him with a relatively good thump, not a complete like decleater, but just a good little like, here you go, buddy. It looks like Semtex has been attached to his jersey and he's been exploded. And not only do you expect parts of his body to go flying, but the ball goes flying with it. And you see these fumbles happen by this way where it's not even him being like loosey-goosey with the ball, Brendan. It's just he's going, dear God, that man just hit me hard. And I'm now going flying, like car crash kind of hit. And that's where we get back to also now the slight build, the worry to your point on that with the injury situation. Last year having the ankle injury, which finished his career. I think that's huge. The 4.82 shouldn't be stated here. A guy like we're going to talk about in a second, a guy like Ritter who's running what 4.5, 4.8 is a really slow time. That's Jordan Davis. That's Jordan Davis as your quarterback in the modern age as far as mobility. Now, while that's great as a one-tech defensive tackle, you go, yeah. At the quarterback position, you don't go, yeah. We're now at an age where that's starting to get a little bit to a point of, no, is it slow? No, it's not slow. But is it a guy who on college tape can look very fleet of foot and able to scramble around and get away? Yeah, but then you know what ends up happening? He gets to the pro level and it looks quite differently. Baker Mayfield is the exact. I think if you looked at Baker Mayfield, you'd find he ran about a 4.82 as well. Watch him in college in Oklahoma. Everybody's drawing comparisons to him with Russell Wilson, slightly undersized guy, makes all this stuff happen behind the pocket. Has he been able to make anything happen behind the pocket in Cleveland at all in his pro career? No, because unlike Russell, who had the 4.5 background, like I'm going to say with Desmond Ritter, this guy doesn't have that 4.5. They got the 4.8 background. They got the it's not that they're statues, but it's that you cannot provide a plus to their mobility, Brendan. You can't do that in this sense because of it. You go average.
Yeah, but Brandon, he probably threw like 3 passes to DK Metcalf in DK Metcalf's final year in college,
Well, there
right?
is that. They've got that magical connection. I can't undersell that. That's true. That is true.
Yeah. If DK sees his face, he might be like, "Wait, I know you."
He's like, remember when we had that one pass in 19? Remember that when you on the practice squad scout team, you threw it up there? Man, that was pretty. That was good. We're gonna do this again, brother.
Okay, so let's move on to your actual guy. Let's move on to the guy you actually like. We're talking Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati. He's got nice size, prototype size, 6'4", 215 pounds, 10-inch hands, massive hands, Russell Wilson hands.
Oh, yeah.
4.5240. So add to as you said, 4.52. Very nice.
No.
4-year starter at Cincinnati. 2021 was his best year by a significant amount. 3,300 yards, 65% completion, 8.6 yards per, 30 touchdowns, 8 picks. Actually took a little bit of a backseat as a runner, only ran for about 350 yards. The previous years, he ran for about 600. The ESPN has him as a late first rounder. Almost everywhere else has him as an early second. CBS and Walter Football have him in the third, but I think you are looking at an early second round pick. So let's talk about the Ritter man.
Again, my QB number one in this draft. So if I get QB number one in an NFL draft, even if it's a draft that has a particular lacking of a class, that's still going to get me relatively stoked. And knowing his tape, I'm really stoked. So like you touched on really the main points there with it that are part of what I really like about him. Most of these guys you look at in this draft, Brendan, that you can go down and bring up a few question marks with them, be it size issues with a guy like Sam Howell maybe, or Coral, or a completely wild approach to the position a little bit, like and how Willis goes at it a little bit versus this guy who is pro ready. He's got the production, he's got the size, he's got the build, he's ready to go. And while I still like looking till 2023 to go get a quarterback, if I've got to come out of a quarterback in this draft, this is the guy I would like to come out of it with, because I think he'll come in here and he'll fit in very quickly. He'll be very ready to roll very fast. So what I'm saying with that is you'll know what you have, Brendan. You'll know what you have basically in that first year. Is this guy the guy or not? And if not, you can then go to get a quarterback next year. But unlike these other guys, talk about Malik Willis. A couple years to kind of know what you got there, really. He's got some things to iron out his game. Even Coral, Brendan, Scott McLuhan, the guy that many people put up on the prophetic pedestal of Seahawks front office, whatever, himself said about Coral, this guy's going to take a couple years to be eventually maybe the guy that's got in some it factor. That's not what we're drafting for in this draft, is for quarterbacks that we're going to have to maybe think that, well, if we can wait a couple years and that we let it grow in the sunlight and maybe it'll eventually blossom, but maybe not. But then if we're in year 2 still waiting on the 2-year plan, we can't decide on next year's quarterback, can lend you into a weird spot. But I got off track. Ritter's awesome. He definitely has accuracy issues. That's the one place that you can definitely ding him on. And now his completion percentage was fine, but in college you can throw for 60% with your eyes closed with some of those bubble routes and short stuff that they do, the RPO game stuff. But I see a lot of stuff with him, which is upside. You hear leadership qualities. I was watching last night some tape on him. JT O'Sullivan does this quarterback school thing. It's really good, a really good series on YouTube. Former NFL quarterback, backup quarterback. You see a play where he's getting a blindside blitz, and it's the type of blitz that it would be a play that, like, it's coming from Georgia, by the way. And it's the type of play that would have given Russell Wilson fits, because Georgia lines up a whole bunch of guys stacked up on the defensive line. They're bringing a corner blitz off of the edge here on this side. And he doesn't even look at it. He just feels it. And off of the snap, he very subtly takes 3 steps to his left. Just 3 steps to his left, not slide protection, just him moving 3 steps. And in that 3 steps, it elongates the amount of space that the cornerback has to run. Mm-hmm. He also has an out route then running then to that left side that he's moving towards. So then he's got to unleash a throw as he's sort of sliding to his left, back across his body on a dime on the sideline on a rope, 15 yards on an out, which if he throws that route, if he throws it off, or if he throws it late, or if he puts it on the back shoulder of the receiver, the cornerback's right there. And he's got the pressure coming at the same time, but seamlessly just makes that kind of throw. And that stuff pops off of his tape constantly to me. And it's why I gravitate towards him so much, Brendan. He's got just some innate qualities to him at the quarterback position that I really, really like.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot to like with Ritter. When I scouted him out, I listed these things. He's versatile. He's a great leader. He's got good pocket presence, puts touch on the ball. I need you to sell me on his arm strength, though, because honestly, watching him, I saw a lot of the same stuff I saw with Corral, where the ball just kind of floats. It kind of hangs up there a little too long. There were a couple plays where he had somebody in the end zone throwing it deep, and the defender caught up because the ball just hung up there. So I wasn't crazy about the arm. So have you seen something different?
I think he has plus arm strength, but I don't think he has great arm strength. So it's not going to, if he had great arm strength, he'd be a first round pick, so this is what draws him into being a second rounder, is it's plus. I'd say it's not average, though. It's above. I think some of the issues come from the mechanical flaws in his delivery. He does get a little bit long at times. His arm slot will sometimes go all over the place a little bit at times, a little like Malik Willis to a degree, who also has this issue going on. But those are things that you can clean up. We've seen guys come in and change their arm deliveries and slots and all that stuff and really be able to take their game actually to another level. You saw the great comparison of this is Aaron Rodgers, of course. Going back and watching the Cal tape, it's It's a lot of him just doing this with the throw, right? It's very like robotic. And now he gets to the pro game and it's him doing this slingshot delivery as he sort of kind of rebuilt himself out there and gather. I don't know if Desmond needs to do something like that, but I do think he can clean up the things in his game, get his footwork a little bit more cleaner, get the delivery a little more consistent. When it's on, when those aspects are on point, his legs are underneath him, he's not up on his toes, he's letting it rip. It really does come out of the game film I watched, Brendan. On the stuff I watched, there was times it would really come out, but inconsistent. I will give you that as far as it's not always coming out with that same pop.
All right. Okay, that's fair. I think that's a pretty good rundown on Ritter. We both like him. I think you like him a little more than I do, but I definitely see a lot of things to like there. So I need some help with this next guy because I can't really figure him out. I need some help. I don't know what to think of Sam Howell from North Carolina, the Tar Heel. So 6'1", 218 pounds. So he's actually kind of stocky. 9.1 inch hands. So the hands are actually a little bit small. Ran a 5.140. He basically ran the 40 time that Corbin Smith ran, I think. So not impressive there. Had 3 productive years in college, though. 2019, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 3,600 yards. Completed 68% of his passes in 2020 for over 10 yards a pop. And then in 2021, reinvented himself as a runner, ran for over 800 yards and 11 touchdowns. So I guess he was doing the Tim Tebow thing, where somehow, despite being chased down by every defensive tackle in the league, he's still running for 800 yards. But the big boards, PFF loves him. They have him in the first. Every other big board has him in the second, all over the second round. Yeah. So tell me about Sam Howell, because I can't figure this guy out.
Sam Howell's a tough one to unpack because there's a lot that goes into this, and some of it goes in outside of necessarily him. So you mentioned the 2020 season. I mean, that offense was loaded to the hilt. Daz Newsome, Javonte Williams, the Redskins drafted the kid in the second round, also who played there. Michael Carter was a guy that they had like a second back there, and they all went to the NFL last year. So that did help push up some of his production in 2020. But then that also can explain why you see the drop off in 2021, where you've got to restock and reload all of those positions across the board now with those guys gone. And there was also, I think, a coaching change there. So there was a new offense being installed. That's why you're seeing the Tim Tebow stuff going on with him, where he's now being turned into this guy that's doing a lot of running and running like the fullback at the quarterback position type running, not the fleet of foot Lamar Jackson. I'm just going to, dance around everybody stuff, but the just hard, like, whoa, he's just going to put his head down there, huh? Oh God. Okay. He's going to do it again. All right.
White Cam Newton
all day long. Huh? All right. He is only 6'1". The thing that you got to factor in as well to this, that this is the part that, Brendan, I'm starting to learn myself. This one took me a long time to start to wrap my head around. I didn't used to build it into my way I'd look at the drafting the prospects and where I put them. The age has got to factor in where you're doing it. You have a Ritter or you have a Pickett who's 24 versus Howell who's 20, 21. You've got to factor that in. That's why I know that's why PFF has him so high up, for instance, is they look at it and they go, a guy at 20 doing this and dominating in this way has got so much of more of a projected upside versus the guy who's already 23, 24 years old and the die is cast. He kind of is going to be what he is now. Yeah, will he develop further at the pro level? Sure, but is it going to be as big a leap as a guy who might be at that young of an age? So they're high on him for that. I'm a little higher on him from that because of that aspect. When I go to the raw film, it doesn't blow me away. He's got a little bit of this like lock in the mechanism thing that I don't get on deep balls, where you can see him as he's going back to throw. It's sort of like you can almost feel like there's a gear going, like I don't know. I'm hearing that noise in my brain when he locks up to throw deep. And what you see with that is it's like I was saying with Ritter, where if it's not all locked in right with the mechanism, the ball will just kind of float. When it's locked in, it's like, he can put it in on a rope, and it's just even deep balls. He can get it in there with some velocity on it. But on that, when it's a little off, when he's pressured, and he's got to be a little bit off with the footwork and a little to the slide off, because I think he is 6'1", so he doesn't have that bigger body that can just Ben Roethlisberger back foot it and 65 yards it with a duck. He's got to be compact in his delivery and right for it to kind of go. That does kind of give me some hesitancy, but I got a mid-second round, I think is right. Cause you do got to do the age factor thing. I'm getting really big on this thing as I go along, cause I think that's a valid point.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the cons I listed for Sam Howell was a slow release and questionable deep ball, so that checks out with what I saw.
Yeah.
I also said ran a simplified offense at North Carolina. It seemed like pocket presence is average, but he does have great accuracy. He's got good mechanics and touch on the shorter stuff, and he's good at extending plays and reading defenses. So I don't know. I kind of feel like Sam Howell's a guy who's made for college football. I don't think
Yeah.
his 5.1 40 time 220-pound frame is going to hold up bulldozing people like that. So I don't know.
You touch on something. I mean, I think this is a little bit of what the Russell Wilson factor created a bit here, which is you used to have a certain size build you needed to be in the pro level to be really considered these kind of top dynamo prospects. And it really is like 6'3", 6'4". And we're getting a lot of these guys coming into this draft now at the 6'1", 6'1.5", 5'11"-ish. And it's great. They're doing good at the college level, which is all spread formations and them throwing bubble screens constantly. But at the pro level, there does come a little bit of you've got to ding these guys a little bit on that size aspect of it, because it's going to affect them at the pro level. You're going to have to overcome that to some degree. It's not just a thing of like, oh, that's been disproven now because of this one guy has done it with this thing. No, it's not been disproven. There are outliers you will find, but the general rule of thumb still applies.
Yeah, real quick here, Randy McDaniel, thank you for the $2 or $1.99. Matt Corral is a known flat earther. Okay, I'm sold. We need a little controversy in this locker room.
Let's do it. He's just colorful, Randall. He's just colorful.
Right. I never understood that. You can literally go up on a mountain and see the curvature of the earth. Like you don't even have to like take someone else's word for it. You can literally go up to the top of a high mountain and see the earth's curvature.
I agree. I'm a, you know me, I'm a guy who loves conspiracies, Brendan. This is one that I just absolutely do not understand at any level. And it gets, when you start getting the deeper into it, the more ridiculous it gets. Like there's an ice, like something out of Game of Thrones with like the ice shelf that like keeps us from going past it or something that goes up to the freaking, it's so ridiculous the deeper that they dive into it. And you go, okay. It's like that meme with the guy who shuts the laptop after he's seen enough, like Jenkins ankles, where he's like, closes and he rolls his eye, then closes the laptop. That's what you're doing in that moment.
All right, we got one more top 100 quarterback we're going to look at today, and this is kind of the guy that I've started to gravitate towards. Right. I like this. It's Carson Strong from Nevada. So good size, 6'4", 215 pounds. Hands are not great. They're like 9.1 inches. 4.8 40 time, which is way better than most people would have guessed because this guy has the reputation for being a statue. I think a lot of that has to do with the injury that he had that he is supposedly past. So it's not a guarantee, but I do feel like he can at least handle like rolling out and moving around in the pocket. I don't know if he's ever going to be a Josh Allen or something like that, but I think he can move around a little bit better than people give him credit for. 2020 and 2021, he completed over 70% of his passes. Kept his turnovers low, only threw 12 interceptions the last 2 years, 4,200 yards in 2021, universally considered a third-round pick by pretty much everyone. What do you got for Carson Strong? Because I like this.
How many they trust his knee? That's what I think is putting him at third rather than a second-round pick like Sam Howell. I really believe that is the case. I was trying to read up his knee, and it was like trying to read about JFK assassination. You know, it's like, it's healed. No, it isn't. No, there's whispers of maybe it's bad. It's bone on bone, but no meniscus. So there's a little bit of like, what's going on really here with Carson? But I will say this. I really liked his tape from the standpoint of the thrower. He has as strong an arm as you will find in this draft. He can really pump. And not only does he have a strong arm, Brendan, to me, he's got accuracy and ball placement on top of those two things. And those three things go really well together in conjunction. You got guys that'll have one, but won't have the other, have two, but not the other. And he's got all three. Those elements go together, Brendan, a lot like you have first step quickness to bend for a pass rusher, right? For a quarterback, you string those three things together like a daisy chain. That means you're going to be able to be reasonably productive, I think, if you get on the football field. He does move like a little bit of a statue in the pocket at times, but I don't know if it's pocket awareness, whatever. Maybe it's protecting the knee, but there are just times where he doesn't get around guys or get just not very elusive necessarily.
Mhm.
But when he stands back and lets it rip, lets it go, the ball comes out of his hand, very nice. And again, you mentioned his accuracy. He's pinpoint with his accuracy, even deep down the football field. So it's not just on the short routers, but deep and down the field. Still has that power, still has that accuracy down the field. So in the third round, he would give Brendan, if I've got to come out of this draft where we're in this room with John Schneider and Pete Carroll, and they say, we have to come out of this draft with a quarterback. We can't just rock with Drew Lock. Like they're all crazed out of their mind, right? Their eyes are like this big, like, we can't do Drew Lock, you guys. We can't do that. I know what we told you. We can't do that. Okay. Okay, fine. If they tell me that, the ideal situation, if I'm like my hands are being forced to this fire, is Carson Strong in the third round. Because then I get to put my first round pick and my second round pick to actually the upside players and the guys that'll be the difference maker as we go forward. Whereas there's not a big difference between Strong to Ritter, right? Versus really their upside.
Yeah. Another thing that I really like is he's excellent pre-snap, which is something that has been a little bit lacking here lately. So if that is the case, I like that. I did, however, it seems like he's going to need a great offensive line to be successful. So if you're going to get Carson Strong in the third, you better get Charles Cross and maybe even Abraham Lucas in the first and the second.
Which would be, honestly, that would be This is again why, and you just touched on Brendan, beautiful point. This is why I like him in the third round, because now you've opened the door to be able to do just that. You open the door to go over and accomplish just exactly that. So yeah, that's why I like it. I would be totally in favor of something like that, because whether or not Carson Strong then works in the long term, which you're not married to him as a third round pick, that's not flyer, but that's, it's also like, hey, if there's a guy next year comes along we like better, we can go for there. We don't have to at that point. We're not driven by desperation to do it, but the door's still open there on the other side of it. I would love that completely. I'd be completely in favor of it.
Yeah, and it kind of, even if the knee is a concern, then it kind of fits into the model that might become trendy, where you get a quarterback, you get what you can for that rookie deal. Maybe you use the tag on him once, maybe twice, and then you just let him go. And if Carson Strong's knee is going to prevent him from having a long career, then okay. Just do it like that. Don't give him the big money extension. And that might be the new model.
And it's only one team has tried this. Ravens are the only team that has really feasibly tried this so far. And just because it hasn't exactly worked totally for them doesn't mean to me it's not a model that can't work. It just means that we haven't had it's way too small of a sample size at this point. And so many of these teams, Brendan, are gutless and nutless when it comes to this situation, because they're just like, we'll have to pay our quarterback. We have to pay our quarterback. We're just going to have to do it. Watch the Cardinals with Kyler. Obviously, they're not sold on Kyler Murray, but you and I know damn well they're going to end up signing him. We know they're going to end up doing it. And because they're going to feel like they have to.
Okay, so that is the top 100 quarterbacks. I do have a few sleepers here, but they might not be the same sleepers you've been looking at. So just let me know if you have any familiarity with the following three guys, and we can talk about them. It's Bailey Zapp from Western Kentucky. It's Brock Purdy from Iowa State, and Cole Kelly from Southeast Louisiana, who is just there because I think he's hilarious. But yeah, so any thoughts on those three guys?
I did look at Bailey Zapp. I was not as blown away by Bailey Zapp on that as where I saw a spread quarterback who excels best at cleanly catching the snap to throw very quickly. So that was his big thing that I saw on tape with him. Brendan, he's a guy, he has this exceptional skill of, he's in shotgun, the snaps to his hand and he's to his throw. And there's not that moment you normally see of the quarterbacks going through their full process to get the throw up. It's almost like it's like it's coming out like you expect almost smoke. It's going so fast, and how quickly he gets it then out of his hands. So incredibly fast to get the ball out of his hands, especially when you have an offense like ours, which has these routes that are going to be short routes. Get the ball in the guy's hands and let him work in space as quickly as possible. A guy like Bailey Zapp in that respect would work really good. He's kind of like a little like Matt Corral in that respect, right? A lot of their RPO, everything inside 15 yards and let it rip kind of dude. As well with Corral, a lot of pop inside the 15 yards. It goes away though, even quicker than Corral deep. It very quickly goes away. He wasn't under duress very much. His offensive line had him clean, playing for kind of a lesser school. So he wasn't oftentimes tested. There's these moments in these games watching him, and I watched a couple recently of him, where you've got his guys running wide open 10 yards and you have him under no pressure whatsoever. So you see him throw to a guy that's got, you're on the screen. There's this much room on the screen where he's throwing. You're going, well, I mean, it's a great throw. The guy was buck naked, wide open, and you had a clean pocket for 15 seconds. But I mean, great throw, bud. So I like that. He progresses reasonably well. 5th, 6th round. I'd like him. He'd be all right there. But I
Okay.
don't think he's got any kind of real star upper level potential.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not crazy about it either. There is a long history of college quarterbacks throwing for 8 million yards
Yeah.
and then never doing anything in the NFL. He seems like another one to me. Brock Purdy's interesting because a couple years ago he was like a future top 10 pick and then it just never manifested. Most of the websites I use actually think he's going to go undrafted, but his numbers were not too bad the last couple years. They just were not nearly as good as the standard he set in 2019. So, if he's going to be a UDFA and you bring him in for camp, then obviously you can't go that wrong with it.
Yeah, I agree. I watched a little bit of tape on him because there's some other prospects he's had at the school there, so you kind of can't. You watch him. He's smooth in his delivery, but nothing. There isn't anything that wows you to him or any traits that you go, okay, wow, that pops off the film with you.
All right. Let me just give me like 30 seconds here to sell you on Cole Kelly.
Okay, fire away.
6'7",
Ooh.
270 pounds.
Ooh, my goodness.
You are not going to stop him in the red zone. Ran for 16 touchdowns last year, threw for 5,000 yards, 74% completion.
74?
Yeah. If you get him, you're definitely going to make all the meme pages on Facebook. That's what I'm going to say about Cole Kelly.
Does he got a beer belly?
He is built weird. I think he was originally a tight end. He walked on to be a tight end, and then he went to quarterback. But yeah, he's weirdly he's got this weird frame. It's like I don't know. It's something else. Remember Jared Lorenzen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is like Jared Lorenzen after going on a diet.
Okay.
A little bit of a diet.
I'm down. It'd be fun, Brendan. It'd be fun, So I'll check it out. I'll definitely look at his tape. I mean, he's got a big arm?
He's got a good arm, I think. I think he actually has a pretty good arm. It's not great or anything. He threw 44 touchdowns last year, 44 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's playing terrible competition, but
right.
I don't know. I think it'd be funny. And you know what? In a season like this, a little bit of humor could go a long way.
That's right. At least entertain us. If we're going to be, it's nothing wrong being bad, but just at least entertain us in your bad, give us that.
Oh, All right, let's go to running backs. And we did re-sign Penny, so we don't have a huge need at running back, but I kind of feel like we have a pretty decent need because I don't trust Carson to hold up, and I don't see nothing with DJ Dallas, and Penny is not exactly the healthiest person in the world either. So let's talk some running backs here.
Let's do it.
Starting with one, I think this is RB1 in the draft. Michigan State, 5'9", 211 pounds, ran a 4.3840. Very impressive. Kenneth Walker III had one big season in college football, but only one, but it was a big one. 1,600 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns. Not much of a threat out of the backfield to catch the ball. Maybe will only be a first and second down back, possibly. But the way he played last year did earn him a pretty much a universal second round grade. So, what do you think about Kenneth Walker III? Would you spend a second round pick on him?
I wouldn't. I will say this. There's guys in draft. There's always about a collection of 3 or 4 guys that I watch the tape on, and I just don't align with what I hear from pundits or people. And it's more of probably my deficiency in looking at it and not being able to put together what it is that's good about them more than it is that those guys are wrong and I'm right. Right. So I acknowledge that. And when I say the following, so when I look at Matt Corral, I acknowledge that maybe there's people that are seeing something I'm not, and it's my missing of it. Likewise with Kenneth Walker, I watched the tape with him and I like his tape, but I see more of the third round range of running back to me. He's 5'10" at 210. He's not got the big build you normally look at the 220, 225-ish. It looks more like 205 on game days about what he's running. He does everything really well. Sweet feet, acceleration, good vision. If you want to really laugh out loud, Brendan, go back and watch his highlight film. And he starts out every run to the right. He starts every run, stops, cuts it back all the way across the back of the line of scrimmage to his left, and then breaks out a big run. And
I think I saw that.
It's over and over and over. And I'm like, well, I mean, hey, you do you, man. That works. If it works, it works. But it is.
Yeah, I saw him throw some very nice like swim moves and just get the defender grabbing in the air.
Yeah, he's amazing he's very elusive too. He's what you want in a running back in that respect. And his speed is relatively legit. I don't know if he's 4.38 on the football field exactly. He's very fast. He is good. He is quick, but I don't have anything bad to say about his game. I don't, Brendan. I mean, you mentioned the pass catching. That's maybe the one thing you can point to. He's going to be probably a pretty safe running back to bring in and be relatively productive for you. But if I'm going to bring in a back that I'm talking about being relatively productive, taking that in the second round is not where I want to be. If I'm taking a guy in the second round, I want some star power to him, some star power. I don't want a lot of questions to him at that point because the new breed of the NFL is that running backs don't go in the first round. So you are essentially getting theoretically then first round running backs in the second round now by the way the NFL measures out running backs and how they look at the position.
It's a good point. So I pretty much agree with what you said about Kenneth Walker. I liked him more or less, but I'm not really interested in using that second round pick on him. The fact that he can't play it all on third down because apparently he's not a good blocker either. Like that puts me off it a little bit.
Yeah.
Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $10. I really hope no matter what, we draft a player and actually keep him at that position. Enough with the hybrid and conversions. No, man, we're drafting Cole Kelly and we're going to put him at tight end. And we're going to run trick plays. We're just going to be running like trick plays all day.
In fact, he will never play quarterback again once he arrives here because if it doesn't work there, then he's going to fullback. And now it's fullback. Then they're going to try him on the defensive line. You know how this works, Mark.
But I do agree. I would love to see. And by the way, Pete had a quote recently that Gabe Jackson and Phil Haynes were going to compete for the starting right guard spot, which on the one hand, that's cool. I really hope Phil Haynes has a chance to win that spot. On the other hand, it also means Damian Lewis is still at left guard. So we haven't learned our lesson.
Can we unpack that for can I depress you even further on that? Just a little bit
Go
more? Okay. The right guard takes on the one tech. The right guard's got to take on the big 340-pound guy. Right guard's got to take on Jordan Davis coming out, right? Phil Haynes is a pass blocking left guard. That's part of what makes him a good left guard is he's got his forays to pass block. So now, like you've done with Damian Lewis, flipping him away for he's best suited to handle one techs and now putting him on three techs, you're not taking the guy who's best suited to handle three techs and putting him up on the one techs.
Oh well. Okay. Let's keep going on the draft here. Let's try to push that out of our minds.
I'll put it out there. It's gone.
Yeah. Okay, I got another running back here. This guy mostly considered a second round pick. Draft Network and ESPN have him as a third round pick. It's Breece Hall from Iowa State. 5'11", 217, 4.3940, almost the same 40 as Kenneth Walker. 3 very productive years at Iowa State, including the last 2, where he had 3,000 yards, 40 rushing touchdowns, 50 catches, almost 500 yards receiving. This is probably my favorite overall running back in the draft. I'll say that. So I know you like him too. So what you got? What you got for me?
Well, let me tell you on this. Let's look at, first off, when we look at the 40s, the other thing we want to look at with these guys like Kenneth Walker versus Breece Hall is a few other factors. And that's going to be, this is why you bring in broad jump, you bring in vertical, because what you want most in a running back above even speed, I would say, is explosion. I think the most important trait on a running back is not the first 2 or 3 steps. It's not the 30 yards down the field when he gets to his 5th gear. It's the 8 yards. It's that I get the ball 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage or 7 yards behind the line, and I'm 4, and then a yard through the line of scrimmage. How fast can I get up to that top speed? And can I be faster than everyone else on the football field in those first 8 steps? And the answer with Breece Hall is yes. Kenneth Hall at the combine jumped 34 inches. Breece Hall jumped 40. Breece Hall put a 10-6 broad jump down, which is an awesome broad jump for a running back. He has excellent vision. He doesn't die easily. And oh, by the way, when I was talking about, Kenneth Walker being 210 pounds running that 4.38, this guy did it at 225. So a bigger back too, traditional size you look for in the position. Oh, Carroll likes that Marshawn Lynch model. Well, here you go. This is the Marshawn Lynch model. Got a patented move, tornado spin. Doesn't even use it. But when he does, it's absolutely deadly. Deadly. Like nobody can touch him when he puts the spin move, but hardly ever uses it because he's got this burst. He's got this Nick Chubb-like ability to just put his head down and go when he needs to go, and he's going to get you that 8 yards. And it's almost like stealing candy from a baby type easy. And I don't see another back in this draft that even, in my opinion, kind of comes close to that same kind of skill set the way he does. He's my RB1. If he's here in the second round, I definitely am open to taking him. I'd like to go for other positions, but if they took him, Versus I wouldn't be perturbed with Kenneth Walker. I'd be like probably going like this, like, but with Hall, I'd be going like, you know, it's hard. It would be hard not to get excited by it because I like him that much, Brendan.
Yeah, the cons, yeah. Well, excuse me, not the cons, but the pros I listed with him were he's a big play threat. I think he led the league in like 75-yard plus touchdown runs, if I recall correctly. And he can play on passing downs. He's a third down back. He can block, and he's a great pass catcher. So really like Brees Hall. I would sign off on that one. The only issue I really had, the big concern would just be his wear and tear because he played a lot at Iowa State, but that's probably fine for now.
It's a thing to factor in. Some of these guys get used up a lot at the college level, and so once you've got to think about it a little bit with it. And I mean, this is again why we come back to though too, Brendan. Why we don't like draft. You and I think are of like mind. We're not big on drafting the running backs early, and you don't gravitate towards doing that. He is one guy though. There are the guys that come down. Jonathan Taylor a couple years ago, Chubb. The guys that come down, you go, well, there always is the rules, the exception to the rules, and I think this guy does fit into that just enough into that mold, even with a little bit of that concern.
Okay. So next up, those are clearly the two best running backs in this draft, I think. Those are the only two guys who are probably going to be second-round picks. This next guy is going to be a third. Maybe he slips into the fourth, according to the big boards. Georgia, 200 pounds, 5'11", 4.4240. We're talking James Cook, a pure third down back. He only really has 1 year production. Had 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 11 touchdowns. The most notable thing about him is that on third down, he's going to be awesome because he can block and he's a great pass catcher. He's going to be great in the zone scheme, natural runner in the open field. He's got a good mix of size and athleticism. However, he might just be a third down back. Now, I think he can be a great one, but are you going to spend a day 2 pick on a guy like James Cook?
Part of the reason why when we've talked about this, I've said I advocate from a roster building position of the stable of running backs as opposed to the bell cow or 2 bell cows because of this reason. It doesn't fit you into a territory of looking for the guy. Can he go for 250 on his touches this year? Can he go? I don't need that as much. It's okay if he can only do 150 touches in a season. I'm fine with that. And yeah, he is that type of guy that you're not going to be able to give a lot of touches to. I look at him as like, obviously he's Dalvin Cook's brother. He looks a lot like him in build and the way that they move. He's 15% less of Dalvin Cook is kind of the way to look at it. So he's a little 15% smaller, 15% less fast, 15% less quick, but still with really some great elements. He's also, by the way, Brendan, I think the best route running wide receiver, to your point, is a third down back. He is the best route running running back in this draft. You can line him out wide. He can do a sluggo route and he can absolutely break a guy's ankles on a crossover. And he's very sudden in that respect. And his hands are just out away from his body, catches it with ease, no problem. Nothing like what you normally see with a running back up the field 30, 40 yards. Saw multiple times of him catching the ball really deep down the field and getting open on his route, getting open by being, a good route runner. So he does provide that component. It's legitimate. I like him a lot. I do think because of the fact you can't put the touches up there as high, you can't rely on him really getting a lot of carries. He's a guy that you're going to gadget in. But I do see him as a third round threat in the new NFL model where it's less about positional. It's less about being, are you the bow cow? Or are you this guy that fits this? It's more, what can we get out of you? How can we use you in the offense? Right. And we'll make it work around other guys with that. But what can you supply the offense? A little bit like what we did with Eskridge last year and bringing him in.
Okay. All right. I like James Cook. I don't know if I want to spend that third round pick on him, but I wouldn't hate it. So, okay, that sounds good to me. Last likely day 2 running back here, and you've already sounded off on this guy a little bit, but let's go into it a little bit more for the people who might have not been around about a month ago. Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M, bigger guy, 6 feet tall, 217 pounds, did not run a 40 at the combine, but last time he ran it was a 4.58, so a little more Chris Carson-y. He does have 3 productive years in college, about 1,000 yards rushing, 5.5 yards a pop, 20 to 30 catches. A couple of big boards really like him. They think he's going to be a second rounder. A few actually think he's going to slip into like the 4th or the 5th round even. So it's kind of all over the place. I don't know what to expect with Isaiah Spiller, but let's talk about him a little bit.
He actually did run at his pro day. So that's the
Oh,
first
yeah.
interesting thing about this. And if you remember with me, I said to you that I saw him as a guy that was a slower version of Arian
Mm.
Foster. And I said, I think at the time, maybe you can, I don't know if I was right. I said, I look at him as more of in that he's like a 4.65 guy or whatever. And so you have him at the combine first. He does one drill, which is the broad jump. And I just told you about the 10.6 broad jump that Brees Hall jumped. Spiller jumped 9.6. Brees Hall 10.6, Isaiah 9.6. By the
Mm.
way, that was the worst of all running backs who jumped a broad jump at the combine. The worst. And now
Mm.
Spiller went on his pro day and ran. What did he run, Brendan?
Well, the 40 time I saw from before the pro day was 4.58. Let me see if I can get his
That's right.
Isaiah Spill.
That's
Okay.
4.6. For 4.6 pro day was the numbers I got up for him. So
Okay.
it's right in that realm of what I thought, which is that's really slow for a running back. That's really slow for a running back. And if you're going to be that slow, then you've got to have some upper level abilities of like being a great tackle, ability to break tackles, or your vision's just amazing. And even that I would offer, Brendan. There comes a point where if you take away the speed and look at the broad jumping as low as is, so Brendan, not fast, not explosive, and you're a running back. You know what I mean? That's going to cause issues. He's got a dead leg swivel back into traffic is kind of his patented move. That's his in the open field. That's what he likes to do. And he's got a smoothness to his game. He looks like a good natural running back, but it's the more you watch the tape, dying easy, not able to drive tacklers, not particularly strong, not particularly rugged. These things come back to me and I go, I don't understand why his value is being driven up as high as it is. Everything here is screaming to you that this guy's not going to be anything near a difference maker or even all that helpful for you at the running back position at the next level. So why is he being talked about in the second, third, fourth, even in my opinion, almost even the fifth round at this point? 4.6, 4.6. Show me a great running back in the league right now who's run a 4.6.
Yeah, it's a big handicap for sure. So yeah, I wasn't too impressed with that. All right. So those are the big four running backs in this draft. I think those are the guys who are most likely to go day 2. I scouted a handful of day 3 potentials. Just let me know if you've got any familiarity with any of these names. I'll run through them. Rashad White from Arizona State.
Ooh, I love me from Rashad. I love
43, 43 catches in 2021. Not a lot of wear and tear on him either. I kind of like him.
His patented move, I'm trying to do this all these guys, Brendan, is I get a patented move if I see it on tape. So his patented move is a stop and start to a mini hurdle. So he stops and starts, defender comes, then he leaps over them. That's his kind of his patented like claim to fame. And you look at his numbers as far as combine, I think pro day numbers of these might be, but 4.48 40,
Yeah,
good speed.
That's what I have.
38-inch vert. So he's right there with Brees Hall on that 40-inch vert. 10.5 broad. So we just talked about 9.6 for Spiller. He's got that 10.5 back close to where Brees Hall is. My player comp for him, and I'm going deep on this one, Brendan. I'm going a little bit on my old head on this one, is Deshaun Foster, former Carolina Panther running back.
I remember Deshaun Foster.
Very, very similar style in the way that they run. They've got that, it's a little upright, kind of just to a degree, but not bad upright, right? Not like, oh, he's just going to get drilled, standing up in it, but like the good Dickerson kind of upright.
Right.
So high cut runner, galloping style, like him a lot. You're talking maybe even the 4th round on him. I would maybe even be looking at there. I think I had him. Let me look on my big board, but I think I had him in the 4th round. I really did like his tape though, Brendan. He was very impressive.
Yeah,
I elevated him to the 3rd round. I put him up in the 3rd.
Yeah, Walter Football and the Draft Network have him 3rd round.
Yeah.
CBS has him 4th round. Pro Football Focus and ESPN have him 5th round.
Yeah, he doesn't give you much in pass pro, good hands, but he's not the best route runner, are also in my notes. But 3rd round, I obviously put him on my big board 3rd round. His tape pop for me. And not all these running backs in this that we're going to talk about here did their tape pop. There's some good guys here on the list, but his tape did pop when I watched it. I liked what I saw from him.
Okay, next, you're probably not going to be a big fan of this guy because he is so slow. But he is very capable of playing on 3rd down. It is Kyren Williams from Notre Dame.
I have not looked at this guy. Give me your breakdown on him.
Okay, well, he's 5'9", so he's tiny. Okay. And he ran a 4.65 40. The dude is a slug. However, over the last 2 seasons, he has about 80 receptions for about 700 yards. So he's mostly been a 3rd down back for Notre Dame, and I do think he will excel in that area. Tankathon and Sports Illustrated think he's a 3rd round pick. So does CBS. Most other places have him in the 4th round. He's maybe the best pass blocker of any running back in this draft, apparently. That's what I've been seeing. He's got good vision, got good feet. He runs a little tougher than you would expect given how small he is, and he can line up at wide receiver. It kind of makes me think of what we thought we were getting with CJ Procise in some ways. But at the end of the day, he is very slow. He's not explosive. I'm not crazy about this one, but he's probably the best pass blocker in this draft at running back.
Well, and that's what gravitated them towards DJ Dallas initially, right? Because that was the claim to fame with him coming out of his draft, was he was the best pass protecting running back in that class. So if it drew them to a running back before, it can definitely draw them to again if there's other skill sets that they like, in addition to that. So it would make sense. And I think certainly again too, because we talked about I think it's Travis Homer's got his bump on his pay right now because of the little escalator stuff that comes into play. So they could be looking again for a third down back, and Dallas has not been able to unseat Homer up until this point. So finding an upgrade over that could be very plausible.
Okay. I also took a quick look at Tyler Algier from Brigham Young, another slower guy, another not super prolific guy. Like ESPN actually thinks he might go undrafted, but he did have 2 productive years. He's a good fit for his own scheme. He's aggressive, physical, quick acceleration, can play on third down. At the end, there's not a lot of power and there's not a lot of speed. So that's why he may be available in like the 5th round and on. But he did catch my eye because I do think he'll play well in zone.
Okay. I haven't taken a look at that guy either. So that's been one off my list. I've been gravitating towards kind of explosive guys because the player model for Carroll in the past, you look at the running backs that they have drafted. Though Carson was definitely not the fastest guy. I think he ran like a 4.58. But even a guy like Christian Michael, for instance, in the 2nd round, it was explosion based that they're looking, or Turbin explosion, the combination of both that initial steps I was talking about, the broads or verticals with the speed. So I'm looking a little bit with that, along with the prototypical size that they tend to like, being the guys that are 220 pounds and usually, 5'10" and up, if they can find it.
All right. If you like explosive, I do have another guy here that I scouted a little bit. Zamir White, another Georgia running back.
I did.
Had 2 pretty productive years in college. Not a third down back at all, but he is explosive, physical, good fit for zone. He's got good vision in the open field. He's fast, ran a 4.4 40. If it weren't for the fact that he tore both his ACLs, he would probably be a much higher pick in this draft. Now, we also have to deal with that fact that he did tear his ACL twice. Because of that, you may be able to get him even in the 5th or 6th round. How do you feel about this one?
I like Zamir quite a bit. And he does fit the model of the Carroll Marshawn Lynch mold of running back, powerful, still some speed to him. You mentioned 4.4 40, jumped to 10.8 broad. So gave you some good there. 33.5 inch for it was okay. I call him a power back with upper level speed. So you get the power, which is normally this guy's just in short spaces going to be the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But then he also gives you that breakaway speed, the home run ability in addition to that a little bit. I do see him as an inside runner at the next level predominantly, though he does have that 4.4 speed. I think he's going to get his work done in between the tackles, which Carroll will of course love, because nobody loves inside zone runs like Coach Carroll. Like you said, I think too, that does then fit him well with the inside zone scheme that we like to run at times. So I think he would be a great fit here. Great contact balance with him, Brendan. Guys just fall off of him. They come up in the open field, they come up, they land strike. You're like, that a normal running back's going to get taken down like that. And they just kind of bounce off of him naturally, just sliding right off. He's just got some just innate power to him and his running style that is very unique in this draft.
Yeah, I was impressed. You usually don't see the 4.4 40 guys fall this late to the draft. It's mostly because of those ACLs, I think. So
both legs, as you said, that's the thing that's knocking him.
It's a problem. It's definitely a problem.
But to your point, there was a Georgia back who came out just a couple years ago on this, who I think also had a torn ACL or a couple torn ACLs, didn't he? That'd be Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out, those question marks were solved on him when he came to the next level. So maybe Zamir, history repeats itself a little bit.
Okay. Last 2 guys are guys I mostly scouted because I know the Seahawks interviewed them at the Combine. So obviously there's a level of interest. It's Abram Smith of Baylor and Max Borghi of Washington State. We already talked about these guys a little bit. Abram Smith is the guy who actually played linebacker in 2020 and then moved to running back in 2021. Had a 1,600-yard season, good fit for zone, great vision inside the tackles, short yardage wizard. If you get him, you can put him on the field in short yardage. He's going to run people over to get that extra 2 yards.
Yeah.
Good in pass protection. Definitely somebody you could possibly get, I would say, in the 5th or 6th round if things break right. So, sure. No beef with that. I don't know if you've looked at this guy very much, but what I saw was pretty decent.
The way you put a short yardage back who's a magician at that's a great way of putting it. A real grinder of a running back, he's not going to be creative. You tell him to go to this hole, he's going to go to that hole, but he's going to arrive with a thunder and a force to him. He's got really, really strong leg drive. So even when guys have their hands on him, he's going to push that pile forward. Again, your comparison on the short yardage is very apropos because of that. He never dies easy. He's going to be feisty when guys tackle him. He's going to look like he's got a chip on his shoulder in the way that he runs. You better bring your whole spirit if you're going to tackle this guy, which I love to see. And of course, again, these are things Carroll loves from just the Marshawn Lynch model of running back that we know he really likes. No, I agree with you about probably 5th round is where I would see him go. Not a lot of, he's willing in pass pro, he's okay at it. Not a great as far as catching in the backfield, but again, like you said, you'd have him here for kind of a role, short yardage situations, get him in there when you need a couple yards and he's going to get it, and then the first guy's never going to tackle him, by the way. One of those running backs, the first guy never gets him. Not that he's going to get around him. He's just going to run over him. So you need getting 2 or 3 hard hats.
Yeah. Nice replacement for Chris Carson. If we do indeed decide to replace Chris Carson, I think.
Well said. And why I've said too, Brendan, like, this is why I always say every year draft in that 5th round range, because this is one of these kind of guys is always there and there's quality there. Abram's a quality running back. He's going to help a team out where he goes in the NFL, whether it's here or somewhere else. He'll help a team out. He'll be a benefit to them. So, and to get that in the 5th round, when that's normally a player, if you draft in other positions, like we'll flip a coin, maybe he can be something, it's kind of nice to have a little more certainty there.
And we already talked a little bit about Borgie, but he's basically like if Christian McCaffrey had to play with a cast around his leg. He plays kind of like Christian McCaffrey, but he's just not as good. A great receiver out of the backfield, caught 86 balls in 2019. He would probably have been a hotter prospect if he got to stay with Mike Leach his whole career, but that didn't happen. Did run for 880 yards on the ground in 2021. Most places have him as about a 7th round pick. I feel like you could get him there, and sure.
Yeah. I mean, for a guy that's got, again, some elements to them, make him unique. Christian McCaffrey element. I mean, it's not just because they're both white. It's because they have their body style and the build and the way they run, right? Isn't it, Brendan? They look very similar in just their whole gait. I don't know if Max is trying to kind of copy Christian a little bit, but he looks just like him. He doesn't do much as well. Unlike Christian, who does break tackles in the open field with juke moves and stuff too, he uses more of angles to sort of break tackles. He'll punish a defender who's taken a bad angle with a cutback or whatnot and be good in that realm of it. But a 3rd down back, very, very small, 200 pounds. But again, a guy that, to your point, maybe if he had Leach the whole time, the production he would have put out might have vaulted him up a lot higher than it has.
At the combine, he actually weighed in at 210. So that's a little better.
That's not bad. He looks small on tape though, doesn't he? I mean, he looks tiny on tape.
Okay, that's it for running back. Is there anybody that you looked at that you really liked who you want to call out here? Some people like, I think his name is Haskins.
I love Haskins is, the quintessential way I can put Haskins is this: Chris Carson 2.0. He is basically the exact same thing that you have in Chris Carson is what you'd have in Haskins, in my opinion. Okay. One other guy I would put on there is Pierre Strong. That's another guy, just fast north and south runner, 4.37 combine. He ran the fastest 40 at the combine. Got the majority of his carries out of read option and pistol, but he's a flash on the football field. He's just really fast. The speed's there, very elusive. He always, he can get a guy. He gets the handoff and a defender's right there in his face, let's say penetrating in the backfield. He's always going to get around that defender with his first 3 or 4 steps. They can never get their hands on him. And again, a guy later in the draft that you can probably get maybe even the 4th round. I like him a lot too.
All right. So I think that handles running back fairly well. So let's go to left tackle now. And this one's actually going to be kind of quick because we've already talked about the big guns. Ikwonwu and Cross. I think we're both pretty enamored with those guys.
Yes.
We also briefly touched on Bernard Ryman, who is interesting because he is a converted tight end, and he's only been playing tackle for 2 years. And he's developed very nicely. So if he puts on a little bit more weight and maybe develops a little bit more what you would expect a player to do when he's only been doing this for a couple years, you've got something. And it's gotten to the point where a couple of these big boards have him as a first round pick. Most of them still have him in the early second. So we already talked a little bit about Ryman, but let's go a little bit more into this because this one's kind of starting to creep up the boards a little bit.
Yeah, I thought he was going to kill it at the combine a little bit more. 5 flat 40, 30 reps on the bench, 30 and a half vert, 9.9 broad, 7.46, 30. Going still good, but I thought he was really going to blow things up to a degree. I thought he was going to Mike Mamula it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he gets drafted in the first round, Brendan, not as much just for the tape, but because he's been doing this work in the background. And from what I've been hearing about is that they've been blown away, the coaches have, with his coachability and how he's coming along. And so I think people are going to raise him up a little bit higher because of that. It's hard. You don't have a lot of tape to see on. I tried to dig and find a lot of tape past a highlight film on him. It's hard, especially understanding he's playing against lesser competition. But he was the second highest graded offensive lineman in the entire country last year. Definitely says something. And he's an amazing athlete on tape. And those are components to finding guys that big, that large, that are going to get you interested. And if he was to fall to us there in the second round, I'd be on board with it. Because he's got some potential, even with his athleticism, to maybe kick him over to left tackle and he can hold up there. And if not, I know he'll be a really good right tackle. And yeah.
I think he'll actually project. I like him as a left tackle personally, looking at his skill set, looking at the stuff he can do. I think that's probably where he projects to eventually play, especially because he's only 303 pounds. There's some weight he can add to that, but I don't know if he can add like 30, 40 pounds without losing what makes him special.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so one more guy in the top 100 at left tackle. It's Nicholas Petit Ferrere. I probably butchered that, but I did the best that I could.
I can't get it either.
Yeah, Ohio State, 6'5", 316, ran a 5.1440, arm length about 33 and a half. A couple of big boards have him in the early second, but most of them have him in the third round. This guy is a guy who played left tackle in college and projects to be a left tackle in the NFL, which I like. But obviously he's a little bit of a step down from the first three guys. So what do you got for NPF here?
I think a little higher than some people are on Nicholas. I do have him in the second round. He has feet so light, it's sometimes like he's walking on air when he gets him pitter-pattering him around on the football field. And he puts that together with an ability to mirror very exceptionally. So guys can stop and start and try to dip and bend, and he just steps. He's right there with them, just absolutely mirroring exactly what they're doing step for step. Other than that, he is very rugged in his technique. It gets a little bit all over the place, especially in run blocking. He's a little bit of a rough prospect with rough edges, but the ability to be that light with his feet. And I think he strikes well with his hands to the inside consistently. You don't see him getting outside too often, in my opinion. I think he's got enough power to succeed at the next level as well. So it kind of all comes together. I don't think he's a finished prospect, and it's going to take him maybe a couple years to get there, but I like the tools he's working with for a left tackle of the future.
Yeah. If he's there in the third round, I'm definitely intrigued. I'll say that. And based off the current big boards, it seems like he will be available at our pick. I just like the fact that he's. You see so many of these guys who you're like, oh, in the NFL they're going to be a right tackle or a right guard. You don't see a lot of guys that are like, oh, they're going to be good on the left. So whenever I see a guy who projects to be good on the left, I kind of get excited because it feels like it's getting less and less common. I do think he is a developmental project, but that's fine. We have a little bit of time to kill.
Yeah. And it's the upside there is worth it. This is a squeeze is worth the juice kind of dude, where if you can get the skills refined and get him on it, he's going to have the mobility to fit this scheme. And he's got things that, again, you can teach the technique stuff. You can't teach a guy to be that light on his feet and to be that good at just naturally mirroring guy as he does. It just is sort of just his natural, maybe it's that Ohio State just teaches it so well, but he was on it and everything I watched. It was just guys could not get around him, and his feet were just constantly see them moving. Where a lot of these linemen, Brendan, they get still with those feet, right? They end up relying on the length, and they'll get rooted down too quick, and then they get the arms out, and then the guys they'll get around there, they'll pull them down. He doesn't have that if you're keeping your feet moving, because you can try to pull down. My feet are going to move, and I'll just pull it back out and around and get back out in front of you. That's why your mirrors so well. So yeah, I think it's a good pick.
Okay, so I did scout a handful of project left tackles for like day 3. But honestly, we kind of already have a project, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
Stone Forsythe.
Yeah.
He is somebody who you're hoping can develop into at least quality depth and maybe a starter. So even though we have a huge need at left tackle, I'm not in love with the idea of taking somebody in day 3. We already did that last year.
Yeah.
But the guys that I looked at, if just let me know if you have any strong thoughts about any of these guys. I have Braxton Jones from Southern Utah State.
Okay.
Spencer Burford from Texas San Antonio. A lot of crazy, weird colleges I have found in my journey through this list. We have Max Mitchell from Louisiana.
I did look at him.
Okay.
So swing tackle. You can play left and right side. Prototypical size you'd love to look for there: 33.5-inch long arm, 10-inch hands. Okay, pro day numbers: 4.32, 25-inch for 10.6 broad. He's got really active hands, which is what I really like about him. And I'm very impressed by this guy. This is a surprise prospect for you, Brendan. I'm going to give you a surprise on this one. I've got him as high as in the second round. I've got him much higher than anybody else is going to have him because I feel like his hands are, he's rock solid in every way, number one. But the way he can get his hands into the right position, lock in, and then the guy's done and he can't get off. And even if he gets thrown a little off track, the guy never seems to get past him. Now, level of competition is the huge part. I don't have as much tape to go off of with him because it's Louisiana Lafayette. So I think I saw like 2 games worth of tape that I got to see on him. But to see that he can play both sides, played it well, and he's got the mobility, he's got the athleticism, but it's the hands. A lot of these guys can't get their hands right. They can't get the process, like I was telling you about, rooting their feet to their hands. Sometimes it's not fluid. With this guy, it's the power of his hands. Heavy hands are delivered in the right strike point to the inside of the deal, and they stay on him. And not in a hold way, Brendan, right? Not in the guy's pulling or grabbing, but he's strapped and he's latched on, just as you'd like if you were drawing it up and teaching the technique.
Yeah, I liked what I saw with him too. I think he's a good fit for zone as well because he's not that strong. He's mostly agility based.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Helen Giesch from Arizona State, and I definitely
Mm-hmm.
butchered that. Listen to this though: 6'7", ran a sub 4.940. You don't see that from offensive linemen that often. I don't know if you looked at him or not, but that's a little bit freaky to me. That's like, wow, how did you do that? Did you get a head start?
It translates in his kick step technique because it's a little bit of like what you saw from Stone Forsythe last year, which a guy's 6'8". If you look, Stone Forsythe's numbers were kind of similar with that, with his movement ability. And you go, man, guys usually at that 6'7", 6'8" stage, they get to the mummy phase, the Frankenstein movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to. So they're really then relying on their length and their size and just being so big that it takes a little bit longer for the guy to get around and they can't do anything athletically, where these guys do have some athleticism. But with Kellen, it's the kick step. He's moving so well for a 6'7" guy and staying right there in the pocket to the arc where the guy's trying to round the bend. Really jumped out to me with him. I like his hands. I like the way he sets up his blocks with his hands. So he doesn't just, some of these linemen you want to look for sometimes, especially on pass pro, where the lineman will sometimes fake his hand out. Like you'll see the tackle go like this to the defensive end. And he's trying to get the defensive end to bite and get his hands so that then he can counter and lock back. He's trying to get the defensive end to think his hands are coming up when they're not, but to first get the defensive end to do it. And he does a good job of dropping that lure into the water and getting the bait to pull, because he can always get the defensive lineman to get their hands up to counter him. They're very worried about him getting those long 6'7" mitts up on him. So they'd suddenly freak out and they get their hands up. He does have a bit too many whiffs for my liking, Brendan, where I don't like whiff reps for my offensive linemen. I can handle rips where you get your butt beat, you get walked back into the backfield. I can't handle it though when you just almost don't even touch your guy. When you're like, and you're like, which way did he go? Which way did he go? There is a little bit too much of that on Kellen's tape for me, which is part of why I do drop him down a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at the end of the day, he is probably going to be like a 5th-round prospect anyway. So there's some stuff that's going to need to be coached up. I also looked at Adair Rosenthal from Kentucky, another guy, 6'7", 4.88. That's again freaky.
Fastest lineman in the draft.
Really?
Yeah, fastest round of last. His patented move, and not all the linemen have patented move. This guy did. He uses a right-handed club like a Reggie White hump move. Okay, so you come off the snap, and the defensive lineman's coming. So Reggie White with the hump move, he take his arm like this into the lineman, and he wields it back and he throws it into the lineman, but it's just coming from one arm, and he's using this arm as a club kind of deal. And so this guy does the same thing. The lineman comes off and he goes, whop. And so he then sends them jolting to this side, and it throws them. No other lineman does it quite like I see anybody on college doing it, but it definitely always throws them off. He is better though in the run game, because if he can't really just completely discombobulate him with the Reggie White hump move, they are able to kind of rip and turn around him. They're able to get their hands and do a pull down move on him and then dip through. So he is a little bit exposed at times in pass protection, but as a run blocker with that speed, Brendan, he can get into space. He can arrive on time. He really gets up on those defenders at the second level and arrives quicker than they're expecting him to get, because he is just so fleet of foot for a guy his size. They're just not normally used to it. So there's some very with Dare, there's some very unique traits with him, you know?
Yeah. Again, we already have our left tackle project, but that 4.88 40 time, you don't see that every draft.
I think he eventually moves to the right. That was my last note on him, Brendan. I think Dare eventually goes to move to the right side because of the fact he has the issues in pass protection, run blocking being his foray. So I think if you want to look at him as actually maybe more of a right tackle type prospect at that point, if you wanted to push Jake with somebody.
At the combine, he weighed in at 290, so he needs to eat a sandwich. This is like some Kate Moss type stuff.
He was trying to run like a 4.6 40. He was just trying to, like that would have blown the combine up. A left tackle run a 4.6, and he probably just couldn't quite get down light enough,
Yeah. It's like I don't know, if he doesn't make it in the NFL, he could become a supermodel, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah. All right. Last guy I looked at, and if you haven't heard of this guy, I don't blame you because I had to scrape the bottom of the barrel. It's Vidarian Lowe from Illinois.
Dear God, man. No.
I think I just included him because his name is cool, but he has a lot of experience at Illinois. He actually has a prototypical body size. He's not like the couple of skinny guys we just looked at. 6'4", 315. He improved greatly in 2021. He's also smart off field. And I know it's kind of bad when you start talking about stuff like this. Apparently, he's great academically, and he already has a wife and 2 kids or something, which I know sounds like a weird thing to talk about. But hey, he's got long arms, 35 and a half inches on those arms. That's pretty impressive.
Those are monsters.
Yeah. His technique overall is rough. He's older. I think he's going to be 25 by the time the season starts. And he is definitely developmental, but that's really all I got. Probably a 7th round pick or a UDFA.
Yeah. Makes sense. I'll definitely be checking them out. And Spencer Buford and Braxton are on my list. So those are like next guys for me to get to for sure.
Yeah. All right. I think let's actually go ahead and stop it here for the night and try to make sure we save enough for the road up to the draft, if that's all right with you. I do have some other guys here. We're going to do we have centers and right tackles still, but I think we should save some stuff for the future. We don't want to blow we don't want to shoot off every bullet we've got in this gun.
I agree. We got a month still left, so we still got a bit of time, and there's not going to be any news coming down the track here on Seahawks land. So I think, doing deeper dives on these positional groups going the next couple of weeks is a good way to go.
Yeah, but I think we did a lot of good stuff today. We took a look at some really interesting prospects. There's a lot here that I would be into. So Brandon, I want to thank you for coming out this week onto the channel.
My pleasure.
And next week we will be meeting on his channel and going into other prospects. So there's a lot. I mean, the draft is hard work. It's hard work for any fan who really wants to get into the draft. It's hard work. So there's a lot that goes into shows like this. So hopefully during the process of all this, we can help educate everybody about the kind of players we might be looking at.
This makes the draft that much funner when you go into it and you know these guys kind of back to front. It makes it that much more exciting, especially if you have guys that you really like.
Right. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We got up about 200 people tonight, and we will continue to go along as the weeks go on. I'm doing daily draft videos on my channel. I know you're streaming now. You're up to like 3 times a week now, almost. Yeah,
just about. We're building up. We're getting there. So I'm trying to stay consistent with it.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. That was a good hour and a half or so on the draft. We've got a lot more to go, a lot more prospects to dig into, a lot more to look at. And we're going to continue to do it in front of you guys. And as always, before we sign off, I got to say, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.